Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bhallabha Giribharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Bhallabha Giribharadhari Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Ratha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 52, entitled Rukmini's Message to Lord Krishna, text number 3 and number 4. Tapashada juto dhiro nishango mukta samsaya samadhaya mana krishne Ravishad Gandamandanam Pravishat Gandhamadanam Tapashadayuto Dhiro Nishango Mukta Samjaya Nishango Mukta Samsaya Samadhaya Mane Krishne Mana Krishna Pravishat Gandhamadanam Tapashadhayuto Dhiro Nishango Mukta Samsaya Samadhaya Mana Krishne Pravishat Gandhamadanam. Please chant. Tapashadayuto Dhiro Nishango Mukta Samsaya Samadhaya Mana Krishne Pravishat Gandhamadanam. Tapashadayuto Dhiro Nishango Mukta Samsaya Samadhaya Mana Krishne Pravishat Gandhamadanam. Tapaha, in austerities, Shraddha, faith, Yuktaha, having, Dhiraha, serious, Nishangaha, detached from material association, Mukta, free, Samsayaha, of doubts, Samadhaya, fixing in trance, Manaha, his mind, Krishna, upon Lord Krishna, Pravishat, he entered upon Gandhamadanam, the mountain known as Gandhamadana. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The sober king, beyond material association and free of doubt, was convinced of the value of austerity. Absorbing his mind in Lord Krishna, he came to the Gandhamadana mountain. Purport. The name Gandhamadana indicates a place of delightful fragrances. Undoubtedly, Gandhamadana was filled with the aroma of wildflowers and forest honey, and with other natural scents. Text number 4. Bhadariyashraman asadya naranaranajam sarvadvanda sahashantas tapasaradayat dharim. Translation. There he arrived at Badarikashram, the abode of Lord Narayana, where, remaining tolerant of all dualities, he peacefully worshipped the Supreme Lord Hari by performing severe austerities. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pesaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine. Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. King Muchukunda, following the instruction of Lord Krishna, he headed north towards the Himalayas to perform austerities. And the result of performing those austerities is that in his next life, he will have fulfill this service that Krishna has assigned to him. He wanted to be this very, very empowered and powerful Brahmana, pure Brahmana, who will enlighten people. So, in one sense, Muchukunda was to come to remain in the material world and preach Krishna consciousness. Basically, represents the Lord and expands the principles of Krishna consciousness. So we see that Krishna does that. He regularly either comes himself or send his representative to fulfill the missions of, establishing principles of religion. Or basically the mission that Lord Krishna have in this world. We spoke, about his mission that has been established in the Bhagavad Gita, the mission of giving pleasure to the devotees, of protecting the devotees, to annihilating demons, and to establishing the principles of religion. So, in this age of Kali, we have the Lord. He either appears himself or sends his representative, not to chop demons' heads, but to kill demoniac mentality. And the topmost appearance of the Lord that does that is Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't come with the regular weapons of Lord Vishnu, and although there's a couple of occasions that he displays those weapons, but he doesn't use those weapons. He doesn't come with those weapons. It is explained in the Bhagavatam. His weapons of astras. The term for weapon is astra. So the weapons of Lord Chaitanya are his associates. Sango Pangastra Parshadam. The Bhagavatam tells us that about this incarnation in Kali Yuga, that he is Krishna himself, but he doesn't have the complexion of Krishna, the color, the bodily complexion of Krishna. His complexion is golden. And he comes with the astras, Sango Pangastra. So his astra are his associates, his intimate associates, his devotees. And he comes to establish the process of Sankirtan. Sango Pangastra Parsadam. Jagyai hi Sumeda Sahas. It's Jagya that he comes to establish is a Sankirtan Jagya. So the devotees are in Kali Yuga the weapons of the Lord. And with that weapons of the devotees, then Lord Krishna is able to destroy demoniac mentality and establish principles of religion and also give pleasure to the devotees. So he fulfilled his mission through his devotees. So Muchukunda is to fulfill that. So he goes to the north, to the Himalayas, following the instructions of Lord Krishna to perform austerities. Who's this guy talking to? Down to. So he performed austerities. Specifically, he was instructed to perform austerities by Lord Krishna. And austerities for what purpose? For the purpose of purification. And then there's another thing that Krishna instructs, and is an instruction that he not only gives to Muchukunda, but he also gives to other devotees, and specifically I'm thinking of Uddhava. Gave very similar instruction to Uddhava. Well, not similar. Uddhava was different to Uddhava, but when Krishna was leaving this world and Uddhava was able to understand that that's what's happening, then Uddhava wants to go with the Lord naturally, but the Lord told him to remain here and go to Badrikan Ashram to give Narayan Rishi the association of on behalf of Krishna. Krishna wanted, he said that that's one thing that he wanted to do, but he didn't do. So he sent Uddhava to connect with Narayan Rishi. So who's Narayan Rishi is this avatar of Lord Vishnu. It's a twin avatar of Lord Vishnu that that display the opulence of austerities of the Lord Vishnu. So Narayan Rishi is the Lord teaching to the world the principles of austerities. So Muchukunda is there to associate, to worship Lord Narayan Rishi and perform austerities in the Himalayas. He's directed also to go to this Gandhamadana mountain, which is, you cannot reach, ordinary people cannot reach. Only very powerful yogis can reach. So it's one of those places in the Himalayas that is in another dimension, which is part of what the Bhagavatam opened us to understand, that there is different dimensions of reality that are only accessible to you if you have the capacity or the material capacity in terms of consciousness to be able to enter into. As you progress in consciousness, then obviously your capacity broadens and you're able to have access. It's explained that, yogis by the power of their austerities, they're able to expand also their capacity, even to the point of controlling regular material laws. So a yogi can travel from one planet to another, or a yogi can control nature in such a way that he can become lighter than a feather, or can become heavier than a mountain. He can become smallest than the smallest and biggest than the biggest, like that. So, so these are all different powers that this human body is capable, and you do that through austerity. So the power of austerities is something really, really important to understand. So the verse says here, the sober king, beyond material association and free from doubt, was convinced of the value of austerity. Was convinced. So here's what Srila Jiva Goswami explains about this in this verse. Expert at discriminating, the word dhira is expert at discriminating, having great conviction through scriptures, mukta samsaya, devoid of desire for results from any other process, nishanga, he fixes mind on Krishna. Or, because of being free of doubt, he was faithfully in concentrating his mind on Krishna. Tapa shada yuktaha, and thus was without other desires, nishanga. He then fixed his mind on Krishna, or respectfully concentrated on Krishna, tapa shada yuktaha, he absorbed his mind completely in Swayam Bhagavan and came to the Gandhamadana hill in the most excellent condition, pra-avishat. So, austerities have to be performed if one wants to obtain any elevation of consciousness. Actually, any type of achievement in the material world requires austerities. So what to speak of a spiritual achievement? And this is, I read you something that Srila Prabhupada writes in a letter to a disciple, explaining about austerities. This is a letter, it doesn't say who he wrote it for, but it's in May 8, 1969, early times of Srila Prabhupada. Quote, I was on the sea for 1 month and 10 days continually. And that was a horrible account. Perhaps you have read it in my diary, which you collected in Vrindavan. So let us forget our past difficulties, and in Krishna consciousness, if anyone faces difficulties, it is considered as blessing, because without tapasya or voluntarily accepting some inconvenience, nobody can realize the transcendence. So when we are put into difficulties while discharging Krishna conscious duties, it is to be understood that Krishna puts us in a field of austerities and penances which help us making progress towards realization of our goal of life. So, in the past, as a principle, this is the thing. As a principle, one must perform austerities. And the purpose of austerities is to put oneself voluntarily in some very inconvenient position, something that is difficult, that is not natural, that is unnatural for your sort of, how would you say? Yeah, it's unnatural. It's an unnatural state of action, of being. For example, Prabhupada explains that yogis perform austerities. So what they do, in order to perform austerities, if they are in the Himalayas, which is extremely cold, not only they have to tolerate that cold and to go to the austerity of that cold, but they actually put themselves in water. They dip themselves in water to the neck in the Himalayas. And that's how they perform meditation. Or he says during the summertime in India, that it goes sometimes over 100 degrees, they made a circle of fire and sit in the middle of that circle of fire to perform meditation. So, obviously, this is a very unnatural circumstance or situation. You know, a body is not necessarily designed to be doing that. But the body is capable of resisting that. But it's not something that, you do like, okay, let's go and take a walk like that. Let's go and take a japa walk or something. So, or, let's sit down and eat or go to sleep or, like that. So these are austerities that are performed. And so why do transcendentalists perform austerities? The end goal of performing austerities is to become to transcend dualities, to transcend the influence or the connection with the body, or to break that connection with the body. So by the power of the mind, then you're able to disconnect yourself from the dualities that are part of being connected to the body. The principle is that these dualities have to do with happiness, distress, honor and dishonor, all these different things, the dualities. And the principle, again, is that this connection to these dualities happens in the mind. It happens in the mind for a particular conception that we have, or misconception in this case, of I am the body. So the purpose of austerities is to sever that connection through the power of the mind. So austerities are meant to overcome. It's a very, very strong practice to sever that connection. So, in previous ages, people were directed at performing this type of austerities, and they were very severe, and also they would last for long, long years, sometimes for thousands and thousands of years. It is explained that Valmiki Muni, he meditated for 60,000 years. At that time, the span of life during Valmiki Muni was 100,000 years. So if you put it in the context of our lifetime, which is 100 years, it will be performing meditation for 60 years. And, it's not that he was living in the temple ashram, like that, doing the austerities that we do. But his austerities was basically hard, no eating, sitting down, just meditation. To the point that he was so still in performing his meditation and doing anything but just meditating that he was covered by a whole, ants were starting to crawl over him. And he was so focused that even though the ants, not only were crawling, but they were building their nest, they built the anthill around him. So that's how focused his meditation was. So we hear through the Bhagavatam the austerities performed by many powerful devotees. The austerities performed by Dhruva Maharaj, austerities performed by Narada Muni, Vyasadev, so many stories of great devotees performing austerities. However, this is a very interesting point, that austerities, depending on the purpose that you have for those austerities, the end goal, they have two different results, because we see that in the scriptures. If you perform austerities for the purpose of obtaining Krishna, and under the instructions of devotees, of Krishna himself, to obtain his association, or obtain his devotional service, his loving service, then austerities have this effect. The austerities make the heart of the devotee very soft, very humble, very soft, and ready to receive Krishna. So the qualities, the austerities make the devotee become very gentle, very loving, very soft. Austerities do that. If the end goal is not the lotus feet of Krishna, the same austerities makes the heart of the practitioner hard. Very hard. Sometimes as hard as being a heartless demon. So we have the example. So like I said, in both examples, they were covered by ants, an anthill. One was Valmiki, one was Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, his body was eaten by the ants. So he became a skeleton, but he was still able to maintain, by the power of the austerities, the life force. But the purpose of Valmiki, because Valmiki was instructed by Narada Muni, to perform austerities. And he was given a mantra. The mantra was Rama, chant Rama, the holy names of Lord Ram. And after 60,000 years of these austerities,
he became the personality who was able to give to the world the pastimes of the Lord in the form of the Valmiki Ramayana. And he played a very, very important role in Lord Ramachandra's pastimes, not only by narrating, but also by sheltering Mother Sita after Lord Ramachandra was forced to exile her, along when she was pregnant with the twin children of Lord Ramachandra, Kusha, Lava and Kusha. So he played this very important role, and he was a sadhu, he was a gentle devotee, a spiritual master. Hiranyakashipu, on the other hand, he wanted to perform austerities because he wanted to become so powerful that his goal was to kill Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu. So the result of his austerities is that he became so proud. So the devotee becomes very humble, becomes very tolerant, becomes very soft-hearted. The demons, or the materialistic person who performs austerities, becomes hard-hearted, it becomes proud. It's the whole opposite happened, performing exactly the same principles of austerities. So austerities is a very powerful activity that you have to do on the proper direction, because if you don't do it on the proper direction and on the proper guidance, you may end, with something that can completely take you the other way into materialistic life. So, obviously, we cannot perform the same type of austerities that are narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna recommends, or the devotees perform, but the principle is the same. Krishna gave us through Arjuna, to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, he gave us this principle, the principle of austerity. And we know that as a principle, austerity is one of the legs of religion, one of the important principles that we have to focus. The principle of austerity for us, as Srila Prabhupada gave us, is secure by not taking intoxication, I believe. So cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness, and cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness. What's the other one? Cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness. I'm missing one leg. And compassion. Compassion. So, compassion, no meat eating; cleanliness, no illicit sex; truthfulness, no gambling; and austerity, no intoxication. So it's a very simple thing that Srila Prabhupada gave us. But we protect that, the principle of austerity. So intoxication can be gross intoxication, can be also subtle intoxication. Becoming intoxicated or becoming consuming too much of something that you become intoxicated about it. You get so absorbed in a particular reality that you become intoxicated. The principle that Krishna gave us in the Bhagavad Gita to understand, and it applies to us, that is the principle of overcoming dualities, is in the second chapter. Krishna tells Arjuna this Matra Sparsas Kunteya verse. Matra Sparsas Kunteya Situshni Shuka Dukkada. So, that Tanstitikshava Bharata. Austerity is to tolerate. To tolerate. So he uses these two things together. To tolerate. That's the austerity that we have. To tolerate the appearance of happiness and distress, or dualities, the appearances of dualities. Krishna explains that all these dualities, like happiness and distress, they appear in our life just as the summer and the winter seasons appear. And then he explained that the whole transformations that comes out of those dualities is all in the mind. And we have to tolerate them. So that's the principle of austerities. To overcome, to become transcendental to the dualities. And while performing those, one's trying to perform, to become transcendental, to don't allow the pushes of happiness and distress to take you this way or that way. How do you do that? Well, you remain steady in the position of devotional service by tolerating. By knowledge, you understand, no. This is just my mind working. It's all in my mind. So this is what we do. This is the internal work that we devotees have to constantly, basically 24/7 have to do. And therefore, in Kali Yuga, the austerities that we're given, they're very minimal in comparison, but the principle remains the same. The principle remains the same. So, Prabhupada explains that these temples, we were listening, I think, last Monday, I believe, Vaishnava Sevananda, remember, we put the lecture, Srila Prabhupada speaking about austerities in the temple. It was very powerful. Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj to his schoolmates. Canto 7, chapter 5, text number 1, I believe. I remember Vaishnava Sivananda Prabhu asked me, hey, which verse is this? Which, like that. So Prabhupada was speaking that these temples are meant for austerities. So when we come to a temple, we come to perform austerities. So what are those austerities? So Prabhupada explains, that we chant 16 rounds, we follow the regulated principles, we go, we wake up very early in the morning. All these things are austerities. And in the performance of austerities, for the purpose of becoming purified to serve the lotus feet of Krishna. So if we have the goal very clearly, then you see the result. The result is that the devotee's heart becomes very, very gentle and soft. When the purpose is clear. Lord Chaitanya explains that because the focus, the process that we've been given is a process that Lord Chaitanya gave to the world to be a devotee. And Lord Chaitanya defines the identity of the soul as Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas, that we are an eternal servant of Krishna. And he says the mood that we have is this Dasa Dasa Anudas, Gopi Bhartar Kama Padalayor, Dasa Dasa Anudas. And we are the servant of the servant of the servant, like that. And when we do that, we take up this process of chanting of Hare Krishna as a main process for purification. And it's also an austerity. We have to do that consistently and regularly for controlling and purifying not only our consciousness, but also the first thing is to controlling our minds. And to achieve that, we have to cultivate, the result, we have to cultivate this humility, tolerance, and respect to others and curb our false ego. So you see, everything is to create this gentle, soft-hearted devotee that is fully ready or capable of being situated in the loving service of the Lord. And all that is because of taking up, accepting this austerity. This is not easy. We all, the four of us, we have the times of living. You're living in the temple. We live in the temple for many years too. And you know what it's like to live in the temple. People that don't have that opportunity of living in the temple, sometimes they don't understand the nature of the austerities of living in the temple. Because it's not just, what's so difficult? Everybody wakes up early. What's so difficult about washing some pots or cleaning, some floors or chanting Hare Krishna or reading books or, doing, what's so difficult about doing these different deity services? People sometimes they understand, devotees, they understand. They see, anyone can do that. You don't need, great training to, do deity worship or things like that. But that's not the austerity. That's just, the principle of becoming a menial servant of the Lord. For each one of us who have the great fortune of living in the temple, to actually, the austerity is that we think of ourselves, the identities that we have is that I can do things in the world, I can control things. I can, if I work hard, I know I can achieve these things. I know I have this type of talents. Krishna gave us, each one of us, each one, everybody, a particular nature and a particular gift that if we're able to tap on it and be disciplined, we can achieve something quite fantastic from a materialistic point of view. We can, if we have an identity that is connected to this body, to this, like that. I'm a musician, I'm this, I'm that, and an artist. I'm a doctor, I'm a this, I have all these things, I have all these understandings, I have all this capacity, I have all these aspirations, material aspirations, things that we've been cultivating through a whole life like everybody else. And when you come to the temple, you have to drop all those and become a menial servant. Give up security, material security, because now, what is your security? If you're put out in the street, what are you going to do? You don't have a place to live. You have to, you don't have, some of us, because you give up for some time, for whatever period of time, securing your material situation, So you put yourself in this very vulnerable position of full dependence in a world that tells us from the very beginning of our birth, you must be independent. You can't depend on people. You have to depend on yourself. You have to be self-reliable. We place ourselves in a position of full dependence. The type of mental strength that requires and the austerity that requires to peacefully and happily and with gratitude perform the service that we perform when we live in the temple, menial service, requires a great deal of tolerance, of, our minds sometimes going, like that, and a great deal of austerity. And the result of doing that, when you do it for the right purpose, when you focus, like the verse here says, that having great conviction through scriptures. So through knowledge, we know that this is the most, that cleaning this floor, washing these pots, is a much more elevated activity that any material, powerful action that we may do out there. It's a much more sublime, because, it's for the purpose of serving the Lord. And that's through scriptures. We know that through scriptures. We have faith on that. So having great conviction and having full faith on this. Full faith. So it requires that. It requires to have this conviction, this faith. Something that we see, I end with this, something that I've seen also, and sometimes you may experience that yourself, then we start to lose track of the purpose, because there's something that happens, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, that happens during, the stage of Kanishta, when we're devotees that are still afflicted by our material conditioning, still afflicted by false ego. One of the symptoms is that we can become proud, because we're receiving the devotional service when we live in the temple and we perform these austerities. You start to elevate yourself, your consciousness becomes, strong, and you become purified, and there's a natural attraction, there's a natural sort of effulgence that comes from devotees doing that. And therefore, people become attracted. And then you start to get the results, the sort of the byproducts of devotional service is that you become very attractive to other people by your austerities, by your service, by your purity. And people start to praise you and do this and things like that, and and you become proud. There is this pratishta, this is labha, and there is this puja. So, by position, you elevate a position for people spiritually. People start to offer praises and worship, puja, and there is also this, prestige that comes, and one can become proud. When you lose that, when you take it into that realm, in devotional service, then at the moment that you lose track, then your heart starts to become harder. It's like it's a double. It's like what does it say? It's a double-edged sword. No, that's how they say it. That you have to be very careful in handling these, activities or these things that we given in devotional service, austerities, compassion, all these things. If the bottom line, if we lose the purpose that we have, that is solely for developing our loving service to the Lord and the Lord's devotees. That's our purpose. If we lose our identity, as a servant of the servant of the servant, and we start to feel, yes, yeah, me. Your heart, the result will be, instead of becoming humble, you become proud. Instead of becoming soft-hearted, you become hard-hearted. So we always have to be watch on that. Keep a watch. I stop here. Any comments or questions?
Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. You hit up on so many nice points. It's like Krishna steals our hearts, I remember when I first started coming to the temple, he said, you be careful because Krishna will steal your heart, and you won't want to deal with nothing else but Krishna, So that brought to mind, you said so many nice points. I was trying to, when we come to the temple, it's a transformation that takes place. It's like we come here, and like you say, all the austerities and all the, it's like a spiritual, like Prabhu always say, Sivananda always say, this is the kingdom of God. Okay, so when we step in here, we start losing desire for what, like you say, you're a doctor, I'm a painter, he's a musician. And when we get to that transformation point, it's like kind of scary, like putting all our faith in Krishna, like you say, like me. I'm afraid of being homeless because I was homeless at a young age. So put all my faith in Krishna and stay in the temple. It's hard for me. It's kind of hard for me. And that transformation, because like you say, this is who we are. If this is part of our nature. I'm a painter, a doctor, or whatever. So it's hard to let go of that. I have to depend on me. So, but gradually,
Right.
like you said, gradually we come to that point where we can, make that full transformation and just solely depend on Krishna.
Yeah. It's the important thing that I find is that, we're introspective enough to understand that I'm in this point and I want to be in that point, and always remain sort of not only grateful, but also humble about it. The difficult part is when we think we are there or we are in a position, we're not introspective. We have an idea of ourselves. So one of the things that introspection does to us is that we can appreciate others. I remember when I was a young devotee, I left the movement for 2 years. The term that is used is bloop. I bloop. And the term was, it's like when someone falls from a boat into the ocean, you go like, whoop, bloop. You bloop. So, but what I was in my blooping state, every time I would see a devotee, I would feel like, oh my God, they're doing it, I'm not. So the fact that, I'm recognized, okay, they have this fear, and therefore, I'm working towards that, But then I see other devotees and I say, oh wow, this guy, respects. The hard thing is when you see people passing judgment on devotees, because they only see externally and they don't understand, what these devotees are going through, So it gives us more appreciation on devotees being able to perform. I mean, really, you have to experience in yourself, to live in the temple, to understand what it's like to live in the temple. It's incredible. You take it for granted. As we've seen it so many times. And really, to devotees that are quite intelligent and qualified, but if they don't have the experience of living in the temple, as seen it's difficult to understand. Okay, this guy, he's lazy. No, it's not only being lazy, there's you see in the externally thing, but internally there's a huge, thing happening for this person to be there, doing their best and their service. It's amazing. It's something that you really have to tip your hat, So you keep saying that. Seba, you have a question?
Thank you for the class, and there's too much. You hit on too many points for me to go to tap on anything in a small amount of time. But I pray the Lord will allow something to come through to even somehow add to what you said. And one thing the other day when devotees reveal some of their struggles, it's like mercy. I heard before, I can't even talk about it because I'll start like bawling like a baby if I even try to touch on it. But one thing for sure that what I would say one thing is that what is like poison in the beginning actually does turn to nectar.
Right.
And once you start to feel that nectar, you start to understand that it's actually real love, what you've been searching for your whole life through different relationships that break when there's trouble. So you realize that this relationship won't break if you continue to build it. It'll continue forever. And based on that, and no one else can break that relationship, or, and you start to feel a sense of security that you can even take outside the temple. You get to a point where you go beyond temples and, ISKCON or the other persons and this and that. You just get a connection from here with Krishna, Radha and Krishna, mother and father, and then you just start to feel like you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes, but the mercy of the devotees give you the confidence to keep going. So,
Yeah. One thing for sure, I know where you're coming from when you say that. I know what you mean. But the part that, just to add to what you said, or to expand, or to uncover one of the layers that is within what you said, is that relationship with this ISKCON, with the devotees, with our spiritual master, with the deities, with everything that we're doing here, we never beyond that. It's always with us. It's just part of. This is the Prabhupada explains. This is the means and the end, both simultaneously. So it's not that this is going to be a stepstone for something else. That doesn't happen. That's impersonalism. This is the real thing, and this will be the real thing when we get there, So this what we are right now is one of the branches of the tree of Lord Chaitanya, so it's not different. This ISKCON, Prabhupada says, is his body. So it's not different. So we're never disconnected to it. It will never be not part of our being, our spiritual being. It's always there. And that's a strong faith based on a scriptural, like that. That we have that. So just to add to that, to clarify. Say quickly because we're really over time. Yeah, so Krishnarchi.
The breakdown you did of the persons viewing others performing austerity and seeing merely the external, especially if one is living in a grand building, the temple. The idea that persons are actually having an easy life or a life of that they need to be monitored because in fact they're actually being maintained monetarily by those giving donations is a very common external view of persons undertaking very severe austerities. I mean, one says severe because of what you so well described, the incredible internal adjustments that need to go on based on no longer having what most individuals require, meaning personal maintenance, meaning one's creating or working for maintaining oneself, not having even a personal life, so to speak, because it's a public life. One has now responsibility to the institution and the requirement of the institution, and that is what one is surrendering oneself to. So I was reflecting on this because it seems to be another austerity that persons who have undertaken that life of austerity have to deal with this very painful barrage that comes from persons just looking externally and not understanding that internal processing that needs to go on in the lives of persons undertaking austerity in an institutional setting.
Yeah, it's what Prabhupada says in that little quote that I read, that Krishna places in that position of, discomfort for the purpose of, it's like a blessing. Because at the end, really, all that what forces us is to see the actions of this duality of honor and dishonor, happiness and distress, all these situations, how they affect us. And when we see the way it affects us and the way it affects our consciousness and our capacity to perform, then we can sort of do the things that are required for me to remain equipoise. It's the whole principle of austerity. It's part of the austerity. This is the other thing. This is another aspect of the austerity that living in the temple have to be, or even being a devotee, you have to go through. It's the scrutiny, the criticism, not only of people out there, but then also of the identity that I have of myself that I cultivated for whole life. Internally, I'm also saying, boy, are you doing the right thing? Like all that, you have to sort of remain equipoise. And that's the part of the austerity that people just don't understand. The internal struggle that you have to be to remain steady in your service, in your menial service, is pretty. You really, that's why you're able to appreciate devotees, different devotees trying very hard, especially when they have the track record of trying hard during a extended period of time. They're not, fruitcakes. They just, they remain through the whole thing. It's like wonderful. Well done. Anyway. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.